Morning, Facebook. Oh my God, I feel like it's been forever. Excuse me while I get myself together. I feel like it's been forever since we talked, and I'm gonna get this mirror out of the way. Since we talked, and I just had to do like a quick little detox from social media. And as much as I love it, sometimes you can get so caught up in the different stories and the different things that are going on that you kind of just forget about your reality. You get caught up in this fictitious reality. So I needed a minute to step back, get my priorities order, and get things together. But that's not the reason that I'm doing this video. I have two purposes. One, I'm super excited because the relaunch of jmonetspeaks.com is happening today. It's been totally revamped. It's sleek, it's sexy, it's really talking to all of the viewers, and we're going to be talking about so many different topics, that you go through on a day-to-day basis, whether it's relationships, whether it's dreams, whether it's goals, whether it's trying to lose weight. Everything that you could possibly think of, we are going to tackle it. So make sure that you go over to www.jmonetspeaks.com, click that subscribe button, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend, and let's just get the conversation started. But the second and the main thing that I wanted to do this vlog today was because I've been talking to my friends a lot and even experiencing it in my own life, and it's this one word called standards. And in this new millennial type generation that we're living in this new society, it just seems like our standards can either be way too high or way too low. So I'm coming from the area of having high standards. Anybody that knows me knows that I'll have standards like I wear my heels, very high standards. And I think it's because I grew up in a two-parent household. Not just that, but I lived in a household where I never ever saw my father disrespect my mother. It was nothing but love. It was nothing but adoration. And he placed her on a pedestal as she should be and treated her like the queen. And because I saw that, he taught me how I should be treated and what I deserved in a relationship. And because of that, I think that's why my standards are where they are. Now, at times, people can look at that and be like, oh, you have too high of standards. But at the same time, I know who I am. And more importantly, I know whose I am and what I bring to the table. So I know what I deserve. Therefore, when I go into a relationship, I have certain standards. I don't think there's anything wrong with having standards in a relationship. Both men and women should have them. I think that sets a precedence, sets a tone for how the relationship is going to go. And you can delineate whether or not this person is ready to step up to those standards or whether or not you need to go separate ways. And because of that, I've carried these standards in relationships, and it's been a little tricky. It's been a little challenging because sometimes the people that you date, whether it's male or female, they didn't grow up the same way that you did. And what you think is common sense, they may not necessarily get. And there's nothing wrong with that because you're just different kinds of people. You expect different things. You want different things. So for me, and I'm talking about this because I'm living it, I go through it on a day-to-day basis. You have to lay out what it is you want in a relationship and what those standards are. So that person, whether it's a platonic relationship or whether it's a romantic relationship, they can know what they're getting into. But the problem comes in sometimes when you have certain standards and you've talked about these standards in the relationship and how you need to be treated, how you need to be loved, and the person is still missing the mark. And so you get frustrated, you get aggravated because you're like, look, I don't understand what you're not getting. And if you're anything like me, I won't say I hate, but it's a pet peeve of mine to have to kind of break down my thoughts because I'm very analytical. I overthink all the time, and I have 50 million things going through my head at different times of the day. And so I just want you to get it. Like, why can't you get it? To me, it just seems to be common sense. And that's not always the case. And so you get frustrated, you get aggravated, and you're just like, what is the problem? What is the problem? Like, why can't you get it? And the other person may truly be trying, but truly just not understand, because honestly, men and women think differently. We think completely differently. And although sometimes we want men to be telepathic, we want them to be able to read our thoughts, and we want them to just be like, look, you should understand what I'm going through at this moment because you've been with me long enough. And by this time, if you say you love me, you should just get it. I had a wake-up call, and it doesn't work that way at all. And it sucks because you want to have that connection, want to have that chemistry with your mate, whether it's male or female, but it just sometimes doesn't happen. So I had to take a step back and figure out what it is that I'm not explaining or what I'm doing wrong, or not necessarily what you're doing wrong. Where is the disconnect? And I realized that I am looking too much at what you're not doing and not realizing what you are doing in the relationship. When you come and when two people come together, there's so many different things that is brought to the table, so many different ideals, so many thought processes that 9 times out of 10 are not the same. They're just not going to be the same because we're made up differently. We're wired differently. So what you may think is clean, he may think is messy. What you may think is standard in a relationship, it may not have even crossed his mind. Case in point, I love the test that anybody could take, love languages. A lot of times we go by the mantra, treat others how you want to be treated. But in relationships, it doesn't necessarily work that way. What I want and how I want to be treated may not fit how he wants to be treated. And I brought up the love languages test because how I love is words of affirmation and acts of service. My mate may be into the whole quality time and I think it's called human touch or something like that. So we're on two totally different ends of the spectrum. So how I may want to make sure that he gets his favorite meal, make sure that I'm telling him he's handsome every day, make sure that he goes to see his favorite movie, because that's how I love. That may not be the way that he needs to be loved. And there's a disconnect because all he wants is my time. So we have to take a step back and realize, am I loving that person despite what standards each of us have? Am I loving that person the way that they need to be loved and how they need to be really treated in the relationship? So I had to take a step back and be like, okay, I know I have this list of standards, and at times I can be considered high maintenance, and at times I can be considered over the top. But what is it about this relationship? What is it? Where's the disconnect there? And so I had to start focusing on what he was doing instead of what he's not doing. If he's not the most I can't even talk this morning. If he's not the most clean person, I have to see where he's trying to adjust tidying up around the house or adjust how he presents himself. If he's not the most thought-driven person, I have to take those acts of where he just randomly gets up and drives to come see me, and when it wasn't planned, as something as, wow, he's trying. If he's not someone who loves going to church or his relationship with God is not totally there, I have to take the fact that he's taking the time to go to church with me as he's really trying. And we have to realize as women that Rome wasn't built in a day. So those behaviors and those things that he may be doing, it's going to take some time for them to be altered. And by no means should you ever try and change a man, or men, you should ever try and change a female, because it's not going to happen. They have to decide whether or not they want to alter some things in a relationship for the betterment of the two, for you guys to grow together. So when I say alter, I mean just switch things up a little bit to where he or she can love you better. And I think if we start to focus on what positive changes they're making, we can take our eyes off of all the negative things that we feel that they're not measuring up or they're not doing. And then you can start going forward and be like, you know what, this person really is trying. Maybe I need to just stop, take a second and realize that I'm doing a little too much. Now, I'm not saying that you should ever compromise your standards or your morals or your beliefs or for anybody. You shouldn't do that. You should hold to your guns. But in certain instances, relationships take work. They are like a second job. So sometimes we have to realize that the person really is trying, and maybe we need to meet them where they are and work together and build and grow together and establish a relationship that is meaningful and loving and fits both of us in the situation, instead of constantly nagging or worried about what they're not doing. Now, you do have those instances sometimes where you date somebody and honestly y'all are just on two different wavelengths. They're just not hitting the mark, and it's just, you need to go your separate ways. I'm not necessarily talking about that instance. I'm talking about where you both have realized that you're compatible, but there's going to be some differences, some opposite ends of the spectrum. So you have to figure out what works for both of you and how both of you can really be loved the way that you need to be loved. So women, men, have your standards, but you need to go in the relationship and explain those standards and not expect them to just know. And as much as it can be aggravating, especially in a situation when you're frustrated and you just want them to get it and just want them to fix it, but they can't fix it because sometimes they truly don't know. Just take a step back, be like, you know what, I just need to reflect. I need to think and figure out what it is I'm trying to say and how we can really fix this situation. If you take a step back, sometimes you can take 2 steps forward. So keep your standards at the forefront, but don't be so over the top and so unrealistic that you're having someone meet standards that you probably couldn't meet or aren't able to meet in a relationship or vice versa. And I guarantee you that will make a world of difference. And I have a follow-up to this wonderful conversation about standards, and it's actually going to be on the blog this week on my website at jmonetspeaks.com. It's going to be talking about ditch the list. And that just goes into a whole nother story about how women, we like to have this long list, 3-4 pages long, of what men should have, what qualities they should carry within themselves in order for us to date them or for them to be dateable. And we are listing ourselves single, ladies. So we'll get into that later. But if you like what you heard and you want to continue the conversation, I will have this video as well as a blog posted on my website today. Be sure to go over to www.jmonetspeaks.com. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Again, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to join the conversation. And I will see you back right here next Tuesday. Y'all have a great day. I gotta go to work.